Hello, fellow Gîtes. And for those of you who are not yet fellow Gîtes, hello to you as well. I hope you're enjoying the Gîte Podcast, well, as much as I am enjoying making it. Today in our episode, we're talking to Julia and Mac from Les Chauvins, which is on the border of the Charente and Dordogne. And they were clients of ours last year, and they decided to follow their dream, move from the UK to France and start a gîte business, whatever obstacles were thrown in their way. And we'll talk about that in the episode. What's also really interesting is that the property they bought had gîtes already running on them. So they bought an existing gîte property. And we will talk about the pros and cons of that in the episode, as well as all about their bookings, where their guests come from, occupancy, what their costs are, what their expectations were, and even about laundry. So there's a lot in this episode which I hope will be of interest to you. So enjoy. Well, on this fabulous day, I'm thrilled to be talking to Julia and Mac, who are the owners of Les Chauvins in the Charente. You're just on the border though, aren't you? Charente and Dordogne.
Just on the border, literally right on the border.
Just on the border. And I'm particularly excited about talking to you because before you became clients of ours, we had actually viewed your property at about the same time as you viewed it in order to buy. We had some clients who were thinking of buying it and you got in there before they did. So you are the lucky owners of a property which I think is how you would define charm and character. Everyone says, oh, my property is so characterful and it's full of charm, blah, blah, blah. But yours really is, with these thick stone walls and massive fireplaces and really wide floorboards and wonky floors and massive beams and terraces all dotted around the place. It really is somewhere that just oozes charm and character. Is that what made you buy it?
I think so, yes. I mean, I think when we came over, we looked online at many properties, and we produced a short list, but we only came over once and we saw 4 properties. Saw 4 properties before this one. This was the 5th, so in 3 days,
3 or 4 days, 4 properties plus one drive by. And this was the last one we came to view. Initially there were others that were definitely contenders. And the first one particularly, which was an old mill house, and we marked that about 8 out of 10, I think, perhaps, being a bit excited. But with this one, last one we viewed, we knew within 10 minutes that it was absolutely what we were after.
I mean, so little of it, but when we drove in, it was sort of complete love at first sight. We went into the dining room and kitchen, then came out and looked over the view, which we're looking at the moment. And I hadn't actually realised in the details, because French sales details are not that comprehensive, are they? They had said nothing about the view. And one of the things I really wanted was a view. And here it is. So it was sort of, it's done. I actually don't need to see any of the rest of it. And there was a lot more.
A lot more, yeah.
A lot more. But that will give our listeners real courage and faith that they can also quite quickly find somewhere. I mean, that's pretty incredible to have seen 5 properties and to actually have found the one that worked for you.
I think so. I think so. I mean, some people might call it foolhardy. I don't know. But I don't think so. I think it's worked very well for us. I mean, of course, you have to have a list of things that you need from a property, and you have to have an idea of what you want to achieve, all that sort of thing. But ultimately, it's about finding a place that you love, isn't it? And I think
because you live there.
Absolutely.
That was always the plan, that this is not just a gîte business, it's your home. So you had to fall in love.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And of course now, if I'm showing guests round, I can show them round with that sort of complete confidence that I don't feel embarrassed by anything that I'm showing them, that I don't think this isn't so great. I love it. And clearly, obviously, I hope that they love it too, or will love it. So yes, it's a comfortable position to be starting from.
And what led you to come to France? You really kind of grabbed a moment in your lives to make this work, to make this possible, didn't you?
Yeah, we had sort of plans that we were moving on from our previous work situation. And the idea at the time was to go and buy a property in the UK with Julia's twin sister and her husband. That was proving more difficult than we thought at the time. They've got a lot of animals, and we wanted something where we could have holiday lets and whatever. And then grandchildren got in the way of that from their point of view. They moved back up to Scotland, and we were left hanging a little bit from that point of view. And then Julia said to me one day, I think you were looking at stuff online, and she said to me, well, what about France? Thinking I might say, no, don't be daft.
Assuming.
And I said, yeah, why not? At which point her ears pricked up and thought, well, let's have a look. And that's really what began the whole process. And so we grabbed that sort of random opportunity in a way, didn't we, back then?
Yeah.
And then it all happened fairly quickly after that, really.
Yeah. We searched online for maybe 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. Then we booked our flight over, found what we were looking for, and that was it. The rest was history.
Yeah,
so,
having whittled down dozens and dozens of properties online, we managed to get them to sort of line up for a short week over here. I must admit, right from the start, Les Chauvins was the one that stood out for us on paper, and then we weren't in any way disappointed having arrived here and seen it.
I did a very uncool thing, and probably not one that I'd recommend necessarily that other people do, because you sort of rather lose your negotiation power. But as we'd finished our sort of tour around, a very lovely agent said, well, look, I'll let you think about it, and we can have a chat over the next few days. And I said, well, we don't need to think about it because we are going to buy it. And then we put in an offer. We were at the airport when we put the offer in.
With a property like that, you have to be a bit quick. I know that there were quite a lot of people viewing it at the time, and there is something magical about it that would attract a lot of people to want to live there. So I think you were very clever to get in there before anyone else. Yeah. Did you give up your working careers in the UK, or did you continue doing some work when you moved to France?
Well, I gave mine up. Mine was a clean break. I could have done some work. I used to be a university lecturer, and I could have done some work online probably. But it was for me, it was sort of, no, new phase. Let's just, let's move on and let's do something completely different. I loved what I did before.
Julia, what did you lecture in?
I was an evolutionary psychologist.
I still don't know what that means. You have tried to explain it.
So it's looking at the way humans have evolved psychologically to both survive and to reproduce, essentially. So why we have similar sort of survival instincts, but then very different ways of approaching other situations as males and females. I don't know whether you've noticed that, but that men are from Mars, women are from Venus type concept can be very, very well explained by evolutionary psychology. Yeah. So it's a really exciting, interesting subject.
And do you miss it a bit, or is this new adventure so all-consuming and wonderful that you don't really miss it too much?
I don't miss it much. Occasionally somebody says something and I think I could explain that using very good, scientific principles to explain that, and think, yeah, but they don't really need to hear it, so shut up. So then I sort of miss it a bit. But overall, no, I've sort of had a bit of a history of having, separate careers, and I rather like that.
Julia still spends some time pointing out differences between males and females to me. I get quite a lot.
And what about your guests? Do you see a difference between male and female guests? I think there's another podcast in this.
I might have to think about that first.
Very good. And what about you, Mac? You were a graphic designer, or are a graphic designer?
Yes, I was. I'd say was now. I had started working as more of a consultant with my old company. Having worked for them for 19 years full time. So I was a bit more flexible, and I was working from home mostly back in the UK. And then when we came here, end of November 23, I probably worked for another 6 months or so, just bits and pieces online.
Mac worked for as long as it took me to unpack the whole house, and then he gave up work.
Men and women, different roles.
Quite, yeah. I was actually involved in quite a big job at that point. But then I decided, obviously, moving here and getting sort of stuck in, the two of us here, it was fairly clear fairly early on that it was going to take most of our time anyway. So I knocked that on the head and sort of we've thrown ourselves into it full time here since then.
But it's a fantastic experience to have, because of course you've been able to use it in creating a new version of your website, for instance.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we inherited the website from the people we bought from, which was very comprehensive, it has to be said. A lot of information there. But we probably spent best part of the next year, I suppose, or 10 months redoing it, rebuilding it with new images and things of our own.
Well, that's the most important thing, isn't it? That you've taken over an existing Gîte business, but there are really 3 houses on the property. but you've decided to live in one that was previously rented out and to renovate one that was previously lived in, if that makes sense.
Right.
So tell us about what you've recreated at Les Chauvins.
Previously, the La Ferme, the farmhouse, the main house, that was rented. So that was the biggest Gîte because it has 5 bedrooms. And they also rented the 3-bedroom Gîte, Maison d'Amis.
Which is conjoining, it's right next door to the farmhouse.
So that was the Gîte business, and Pete and Kelly, the previous owners, used to. So they would be sometimes in France, sometimes in the UK. But when they were in France, they lived in what we now call La Chaumière, which was the 2-bedroomed now Gîte. It was their own property. You felt quite firmly, didn't you, that you wanted to live in the farmhouse?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it very much a lifestyle choice for us as well coming here, and that was it's such a nice property. It has lots more space that we actually do benefit from, and we have family who come out and stay with us as well, no problem at all, which works really well. And the 2-bedroom Gîte, it's a lovely place to stay for a week or two, absolutely gorgeous, but it's tucked away at the bottom of the property, down the lane, fabulous views, but you're a little bit isolated from postal services, deliveries, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, Les Chaumières is more of a kind of hidden bolt hole. That's the feeling I have. If you were to go and stay there, you'd think, oh, this is all for me and I'm on my own in the world. So you took the 5-bedroom Gîte and you turned that into your home, together with, if people can hear a little bit of whimpering going on, that's Thurza, your Labrador. It's not one of you, is it? So you share that with Thurza, who's very beautiful Labrador. And then the Maison d'Amis is the 3-bed that has remained pretty much the same, hasn't it?
Yes.
As it was. That hasn't changed too much. But you have done quite a lot of work to La Chaumière.
Yes.
Put in a new kitchen, fantastic new bathroom with the most incredible shower. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Thank you. Yes, we always knew when we saw the survey, La Chaumière is definitely the building that needed the most work, certainly from an insulation point of view. I think because we had fallen in love so completely, I don't think I really took in any of the things that really needed work. But when we moved here, we thought, actually, we do need to do quite a lot. And of course, once you start, then you start finding other things. So we ended up having to take down lots of plasterboard and on the walls to get some insulation in, and we took a ceiling down in the bathroom so that we've got the
roof space,
double height kind of cupola type thing, kind of carpentry thing.
A little bit of a shame not to show that because it's so pretty, and yes, so it became a pretty big job actually.
But, replacement windows as well.
Replacement windows, lots of them. So, but it now has more light because of the replacement windows and much better insulated. The plumbing works more efficiently, and it's beautiful. So we're really proud of it actually.
And the garden, you've kind of totally pimped the garden, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got the big courtyard at the front, which we didn't need to do too much to, other than a new tonnelle, a new gazebo. But at the back, we built a balcony because the French doors opened onto just a big drop, which we thought wasn't right.
There must have been a balcony there.
So we built a beautiful new balcony, which can take a picnic table, so you can sit and look over these same views that I'm looking at, and it's totally peaceful. And they're literally looking at sunflower fields at the moment. So
wow,
but
it's more than a balcony, isn't it? It's more like a deck.
It's a deck. It's a deck.
A raised deck.
Yes, it's a deck. And then there's also another, you can come down from the deck onto a new gravelled area that has 4 sunbeds. And so it's very quiet and peaceful. Yeah. So that all took a lot of work actually, and a fair degree of expenditure.
Yeah. We also, the front courtyard, we didn't do too much to, but what we did do was put in a central raised bed using oak sleepers and an olive tree as a central feature, which is also planted up with herbs and things, which is a lovely feature.
You built a barbecue as well, didn't you?
Oh, yes,
yes, did that too.
Absolutely right. Yes.
Oh, and that.
When we came to see you at the property, you had a really interesting question that you wanted our take on, which was, between your house and the Maison d'Amis, there is a very large space between the two houses on the ground floor, which is currently used as a kind of games room for the guests. There's the most incredible gym equipment in it. What else have you got in there?
Pool table, table tennis, darts, 3 large bits of gym equipment, sofas.
This was the interesting thing, because you said we are considering whether we should turn this into a third gîte. And we looked at it with you. And I remember one of the things you said, Mac, was it's a really popular room. And immediately we were like, if it's really popular with guests and they enjoy using it, why are you thinking of changing it? And do you want even more people on the property? We ummed and ahed for a bit and we said, actually, we don't think it's worth doing it. And then I was really impressed. You then took the step of getting the estate agents in and saying, what do you think about us changing this space? And what was their response?
Well, they really pointed out to us that given all the little private spaces that we have here and access to the pool, if we went ahead with another gîte, that we'd be in danger of overpopulating things just that little bit. So it seemed like a good response, and we took that on board. And actually now, sort of a year later, absolutely happy with that decision. It was the right one.
And did the estate agent say that it would increase the value of the property by turning it into another gîte, or not particularly?
No, not particularly. But the investment in the farmhouse was worth doing. Was what they said. And I have to say, shout out for James, the agent, actually, who right from the beginning of the process was absolutely fantastic. Held our hands, was very switched on and attentive, and made the whole thing a lot easier for us, I have to say, because it's not an easy process going through all the French bureaucracy and whatnot.
How long did it take you to buy, from having your offer accepted to getting the keys?
I think about
5 months.
5 months,
I would say.
I think.
So around
not bad.
middle of June 23, we made the offer and had it accepted, and then we were in here on the 30th of November.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
I think probably helped by the fact that neither Pete nor Kelly nor us, nobody wanted to put a spanner in the works. We all wanted it to go smoothly. So it was a very easy move from that point of view. Everything was quick and straightforward. And James, you said, was excellent. So I think it was as easy as French bureaucracy would possibly allow it to be.
Yeah.
And what about getting visas? Because you're both British, aren't you?
Yes.
Interesting process.
Gary?
So we actually we had an initial 12-month visa, and we just renewed in February. Actually, a lot easier the second time. Well, for me, I did it online. A bit more complicated for Julia, who has the working visa. And the initial setup and process was quite complicated. A lot of paperwork, of course, with French stuff.
Yeah.
And we had to go back to the UK to do the process, go through it all with the French embassy and stuff, and the company they use in London. It's a bit stressful, has to be said.
So essentially, you had to, for me, because I had a working visa, a micro-entrepreneur visa, you had to have a business plan approved by the French government before, and so an actual document to submit with your visa that would essentially say, we think this business will work and will make money. So essentially what was happening was that we were busy buying Les Chauvins without actually knowing for sure whether we might be able to live in it, because we didn't know whether we'd get a visa.
You still went ahead with it?
But we still went ahead because we thought it's what we want to do and we've got to believe in the process. So, but it did mean that we did everything we could to make sure that we had dotted every I and crossed every T, to the point that actually I think perhaps I slightly overdid it, because I actually said, I think it had asked what your qualifications were for your new business. And I thought, I'm not sure what qualifications I would need for running the gîtes. But so I sort of mentioned previous qualifications and then said something about transferable skills. And then suddenly, after we'd had the interview, sort of, they contacted me to say, can we have the documents? We need to see the actual, and I'm thinking, well, no. I mean, for a start, they're in France, so we're in the UK, and you've now taken our passport off us. So, so it was a little bit scary, and I had to write a sort of a CV that did these. It was a bit scary, but anyway, it all happened in the end. And it's not straightforward.
I think we weren't overly concerned about going ahead with the purchase at that point, in the sense that we were excited.
And you still had your property in the UK as well, so you weren't homeless then?
Well, we should have been, because we had actually sold it.
Oh, yes. And it fell through.
And it fell through, but we were a long way down the track, and the last thing we wanted to do was to lose here. So we have a very, very kind, my twin sister and brother-in-law, very, very kindly helped us out while we sort of bridged the gap between actually selling and hoping to sell.
So there were lots of obstacles put in your way that could have deterred you, but you've been bitten by the bug and saw this new lives for yourselves and thought,
Yeah.
we've got to go for it. And any
Absolutely.
regrets?
None.
Any regrets at all? Never? Not a second? No?
No, I
I
can
think
honestly
once-
say that. I don't think so.
I think once in the first winter, I have to say it was noteworthy that the winter of 23 to 24 apparently was noteworthy here for the amount of rain that felt not dissimilar to the UK. No, I mean it's been hard work and frustrations and things that have worried us, but no regrets. No.
I was going to say, having thrown ourselves in, we were kept very busy. So there wasn't a lot of time to think about regrets or whether we'd done the right thing. It was just a case of cracking on.
Get on with it.
And getting on with it. And then seeing the progress was quite uplifting anyway, seeing things improving and getting there. So in a sort of slightly masochistic sort of way, it was quite a nice process,
Funny. The first winter we had here, we moved in October and it was also very wet and there was so much building going on here that you just had to walk outside and you were covered in mud. And Frank said after a couple of months, I want my money back. I haven't moved here for this mud and rain. And so I had to promise it would get better. And I was thinking, I quite like it. I don't mind. But yeah, maybe that's good that your first winter was bad. It'll never be, it can only get better.
And like you guys, we also had builders in.
Yeah.
We had to find the builders. That was a bit challenging. But then we got builders in. So it was all this, a lot of people find it challenging having builders around all the time, don't they? It's not generally a straightforward process. So there was quite a lot to challenge us initially, but
it all helped with integration and getting to know the area and the people and that sort of thing. So there are benefits all around, really.
And so you bought this property with 2 existing gîtes. You moved into one of them yourselves and continued renting out the second one and turned the third house into a 2-bed gîte. What I would normally say to people, buying an existing gîte business is a really good idea because you're going to have returning guests if you aren't going to change the property around and you can still accommodate the same number of people. You've got a name for yourself. Your property is going to be known by Airbnb and you should be able to hit the ground running, especially with getting bookings. Was that the case in your situation? Was it a help or a hindrance to get to buy an existing gîte business in your case?
Neither, to be entirely honest.
Neither, or a mix.
In terms of existing business, not really, because of the different setup that we've described. The previous business used to be very much about big family gatherings, that sort of thing, or big groups of people getting together, and they would take the farmhouse primarily and then perhaps the maison de mise as well and make it even bigger. So we were obviously going for a very different sort of setup, no, we didn't really get the same. We had a few inquiries from previous guests, but we weren't able to accommodate them because we didn't have the space that used to exist. And we'd also said to Pete and Kelly that we didn't want to keep the diary open because we really didn't know how long it would take us to do the work, some of the work we knew that we wanted to do and to get set up. In many ways, it was it was sort of really like starting from fresh from that point of view. But then things like, for example, we have all this amazing linen, dip and doze laundry, Egyptian cotton, just lovely, masses of it. Didn't have to worry about that. Same with the towels. There were all sorts of things that were already done, which if you'd had to do the whole lot all at once, it would have been a big ask.
When we bought our place, we moved from a studio apartment in Amsterdam and suddenly we had 6 bedrooms and bathrooms that we were renting out. And it took Frank 3 months to source everything. He had this Excel list, which just went on and on. You know what we're like with Excel lists. He loved it, but it would drive me mad. So I think being able to buy, especially Kelly has got really good taste. And I can imagine some of the stuff she'd bought was just beautiful and wonderful.
Yes, that definitely gave us a big head start.
For me, we fell in love with the place and the style, absolutely beautiful. So, but then actually, rather weirdly, one of the hindrances for me was that, so we'd fallen in love with that, but then I found that I wanted to put my mark on it and to do things the way I would want to do it. But then I felt quite held back for some time because I thought, why am I wanting to change what I fell in love with? That's not logical. But then I sort of thought, but it just didn't go away, this feeling that I want to do this and I want to do that. So eventually I sort of embraced it. And so it does look quite different now, but we've done that. That's evolved over time. You know, we didn't have to do it straight away, but it has evolved. It's not the same place that it was.
Putting your mark on it, it was very important for you feeling like you're the owner
Absolutely.
of the Gîte business. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Interesting.
I used to have in a previous iteration before the evolutionary psychologist bit, I used to have an interior design shop. And that's always been, and I used to be in property development. So, you know, property and how they look and how they're presented is very much something that I absolutely love. So that's probably why I felt I need to do some of this myself, you know.
So that's really interesting that you've got the interior design backgrounds and property development, Mac, your graphic design. And then I'm going to really embarrass you two now, because there is something else the two of you have, which is obviously helping your business enormously. And that is your hospitality. So I'm going to read some of the reviews from your guests. Rowan said, Mac and Julia were very welcoming and always in the hand if needed without being intrusive. Claire said, Julia and Mac were the best hosts. Elodie says, hosts Julia and Mac are very responsive, full of kind attention, while remaining very discreet during the stay. Sebastian says, Julia and Mac were very hospitable. Nico says, super hosts, responsive and friendly. Eveline says, Mac and Julia were warm and extremely helpful. There wasn't one review that you weren't mentioned in. So you've obviously hit that nail on the head. And that is really important because you do live on site. You've got a wonderful dog who obviously they're going to see at some point and meet at some point. And you become part of their holiday, the experience they have of Les Chauvins. And you've obviously got that down to a T. How have you enjoyed that side of it, getting to know your guests?
Yes, we've enjoyed it a lot. We were a little bit worried because we thought we don't want to be in people's space. You know, they come here for sort of calm and tranquility and privacy. And, you know, the last thing they need is someone sort of hovering over them, making them feel uncomfortable. But then equally, we wanted to be warm and welcoming. But I think we've just sort of gone with what felt right, and we've taken cues from them as well. You can sort of tell when people want to talk more or less, you know, and so we've just respected that. But I suppose mostly, apart from the welcome, which we always try to do, you know, and sort of show them around and all that sort of thing, the forays, if we need to make contact, will be by a message, and then if they might pop round or something like that, in which case we know then that this is okay, we can talk, we can see each other. And so we've been asked to come and have a drink with people.
We very much take their lead. I suppose one of the drivers for that approach was really when we were getting to grips with things, was thinking about what would we want, how would we want to approach a holiday here, and what our expectations would be. So that was a sort of baseline, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah.
But then we, as you said, sort of picked up from the guests as we've gone through. And I think we've got a pretty good setup now, the way it works for us. Yeah.
I hope so.
Do you enjoy going for drinks with the guests? Is that something that is an unexpected pleasure, or had you expected it?
No,
expected it, and it has been fun. It's been nice and relaxed.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't, even if they do, we tend not to stay too long, just in case maybe there's a sort of a feeling that they should, because we've got to sort of know each other a little bit, and so we're always sort of erring on the side of caution and not being too around, you know. But and doing things like, you know, putting the laundry out at the back. It's lovely, isn't it? You know,
yeah, we've been very lucky, maybe in some respects, with our guests. They've all been really, really nice people. But no major issues whatsoever, and long may it continue.
Because you do also have guests who are going to a wedding venue nearby, aren't you? And I don't know, when I hear of wedding guests staying, I do think of late nights and lots of wine and...
Yeah.
You haven't had any parties or problems
I mean, the same thoughts crossed my mind, I must be honest. And our off-season bookings have been very much centred around the wedding, local weddings. And actually, they've all been really well behaved, very respectful, very quiet on their return. You'd almost barely know they were there. So again, that's actually been fine for us.
Yeah. It's been lovely. Well, actually, we have neighbours on either side, not close, you know, and we've sort of talked to them, and they've been very relaxed about. I mean, I would hope that we wouldn't have guests making, you know, great din at 3 a.m, but they're also saying no, they're here to enjoy themselves.
How have you dealt with Thursa, your dog, being on the property? So is she allowed to roam everywhere and anywhere?
No.
We've We've got our own sort of private back garden to the farmhouse, which we've made secure. And we have a top terrace that we're sitting on now, separate from the courtyard below us. And we've separated that so she can't access those points around guests and things. She makes her presence known every now and again. Guests will come up the steps and say hello to her at the fence as well, of course, which is nice. But we have made sure that she's not roaming freely, because it's probably safer not to. Just with kids around, you never know how they are with dogs.
How has the division of roles between the two of you been? Because you've got a large property to manage and to clean and guests to welcome and marketing and admin and finances. How has that division of tasks gone?
It's sort of evolved naturally.
Male-female differences.
Yes.
So you're in charge then, Julia?
I'm in charge.
Yeah.
What more do we need to say? You probably do the finances more than I do. I do the paperwork other than the finances more than I do all the guest communication. I tend to do the welcomes, but Matt would sort of pop in and say hi, but it's up to me. You do the pool, which is a bigger job than we'd realised. I am responsible for the sheets pretty much, although when we're doing a double changeover, as in like we did yesterday, then you do the dusting and the sweeping, and I do everything else. Oh, one thing that should be contentious, but I've let it go, is that I said to Matt, I am absolutely not doing social media. I wasn't on social media before we came here. Wasn't even on Facebook. No interest in being on social media. Didn't want to do it. I have a massive aversion to showing my face on anything, and you won't find it on social media.
You've really taken to social media?
Well, not really.
Instagram,
yes. So I do all of those reels, and I'm sort of, I'm not a complete convert, I wouldn't say, and I don't put me into it.
Social media can be an amazing place when you are proud of something or you are passionate about something, and then you can let rip. I'm passionate about Gîte, so having Gîte Guru on Instagram is just fantastic. I love it. And there's no other outlet where I could pour out my passion for Gîtes in the same way. So it's hopefully the same with you and Les Chauvins.
Yeah. And we enjoy your Gîte Guru's posts, by the way, and it's sort of really...
Well, you've been in some of them, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
I was going to say that when we're out and about, in walking Thursday or whatnot, so we're out most areas, most days of the week, we've always got an eye to a photograph as well, thinking in those terms of Instagram posts and things. So we're both quite switched on to it now, and it's not the chore we thought it would be, particularly, I don't think.
And looking at the nuts and the bolts of the business, so you took over an existing business, but actually not with any bookings, as it were. You've slightly changed the configuration of the Gîtes. How were bookings this year compared to last year?
Really good. Yeah. Really, really good. So
Brilliant.
We started quite late last year, in fairness. So we didn't really sort of start marketing it until, I can't quite remember when it was, April, May, but we sort of really started full whack in the high season, and it was sort of going from zero to full on immediately, which was a bit scary. But we're pretty much fully booked over summer this year. But what we've picked up on massively are the out of season bookings, which has been partly through your good advice, which we've really, we tried to take on board as much as we could, partly also through the wedding venue that we talked about, and another wedding venue. Last year, I think we had 16 bookings, and this year we've got something like 35 already. And we're hoping to pick up more. So we've more than doubled the number of bookings. The revenue is probably around about double, I would say, because of course the additional bookings are tend to be shorter, and we don't keep it to the full week, three days minimum, and they're slightly cheaper as well. And so we're now at a revenue pretty much where we think that we can just about live day to day, pay our bills, go back to the UK every now and then, that sort of thing. We can manage. It's not a massive living, but we didn't come here for the massive living. That was, or the huge income. But it's sufficient, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
I have to say I'm very pleased the way it's gone this year.
Yeah.
And I can see we've still got time to get more in it this year as well.
Yeah.
I think there's still going to be a lot of last minute bookings this year. People are just being a little more cautious with their money and their time. And when you look at your costs, apart from tax, obviously, which is one of the largest costs, you do all the cleaning yourselves, or do you have somebody helping you?
No, all the cleaning ourselves. I do all the laundry. The only thing that we outsource is which is mountains. That's one thing I hadn't quite. I mean, so you sort of think theoretically, okay, so you're changing, what is it? 5 bedrooms, but you're changing the duvet, the sheets, the pillowcases, the mattress protector, all those things, and all the
towels,
all that sort of thing. But when you do that and they get dumped into the laundry room, and it takes me, when it's a full changeover like that, it takes me the full week to get through the whole lot. I actually quite enjoy it. I find it really quite sort of therapeutic.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, yeah. But so what I don't do is the ironing, which I don't enjoy, never have, never will. So that goes out, and it's just a joy to get it back ironed. But that's an unnecessary cost in some respects, in that we could do that. Otherwise, the only major costs, really, big costs, are electricity. That's expensive, very expensive here. Well, it is in the UK as well. I think it was a bigger water bill last year than we expect this year. Yeah, but because we were cleaning the pool in a way that, again, we won't bother to go into right now, but we got through more water than we perhaps needed to. So the water bill was fairly eye-watering, but has come down significantly.
That after all this time, there are no kind of major surprises, and you are doing well enough to cover all your costs and live your daily lives, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And who are your guests? So you've got a 3-bed and a 2-bed. How often do they get rented together?
Not that often. They are
Really?
at home. We probably have, I don't know, 10% would be together.
I was going to say 20% maybe at the moment with the wedding stuff, taking both sheets.
But the high season.
But that season, pretty much individual families, I would say.
And where do they come from?
The UK, 50% maybe. So we were initially told it'll be virtually all the UK. It's actually about 50% UK, and then we get
fairly even mix, the others, I think.
Yeah, French, Belgian, Dutch.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
And mostly families, or do you also get couples or individuals?
Family. Always the season, definitely families. Yeah, and the pool being a major focus for them. We're geared up for children in the top garden as well, with swings and climbing stuff and whatnot.
There was like a separate level up at the top of the garden, isn't it? That is just perfect for kicking a ball about and having a swing. Yeah, it's really clever to have done that. Yeah. And one of the things we did with you was to help prepare you for the dreaded classification, which you did extremely well in, didn't you? So just to explain, classification is when you get the Ministry of Tourism to come around and give you a star rating based on 133 questions that they have, some of which are obligatory, some of them are optional, but they tot up all the figures, and then they will award you 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. And they awarded Les Chauvins
4 stars.
Yay! Congratulations. That's fantastic. We did spend quite a lot of time. We've got an Excel spreadsheet with all the questions in it and any information we've been able to glean from the Ministry of Tourism about what they actually mean by each question, because it's not always very logical, is it?
No.
You went through this and tried to guesstimate what you were going to get. How was that whole process before and during the inspection?
It was a lot tougher than we thought it would be. The inspection wasn't. The inspection was
remarkably well, actually.
It was lovely. We had a lovely, lovely inspector. He spoke very little English, which I sort of vaguely panicked about at the start, but we managed to sort of muddle through. I would like to say it in beautiful French. Well, it was sort of in French, not beautiful, and there was a lot of pointing going on. But he was lovely.
He came with a positive attitude himself. He was clearly being helpful and looking for the good, not the bad. Obviously, he's ticking things off and clearly knew what he was doing inside out.
Yeah.
I think he was counting plates without actually counting them, if you know what I mean.
It is literally, for anyone embarking on it, and you'll know, it's incredibly thorough, and they will literally count out, if you need 12 dinner plates or 12, bowls that have straight sides, they will count those out and make sure that's exactly what you've got. So previously you had to have sort of supersized beds for 5-star only. Now you need them for a 4-star rating. And in fact, he seemed because we had a bit of communication beforehand, he seemed quite hung up on that. But we didn't want to change our beds because, for example, we've just bought a new antique, not new, half tester bed for one of our beds. rooms. And it's beautiful, and it's what you come here for, that sort of authenticity. But it's not supersized. It's a standard double bed. And we said, look, we don't want to change these beds, but if we did X and Y instead on the mandatory point front, will this suffice? And we sort of managed to not negotiate away, because there are standard number of points, as you know, that you have to get, but we managed to get the right number of points by not changing the beds, which was brilliant.
But that's how something like a star rating should work. It should be flexible enough that, if you over deliver, like I think you do on all the games and the facilities you offer the guests, that should recompense a little bit the fact that you've got beautiful antique beds that are not as big as modern beds are. Having 4-star gîtes means that you are in the top 10%. For the Dordogne, you're in the top 10%. Congratulations. It's a big, big achievement. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah. And we did invest as well to do that because, for example, there were requirement for heated towel rails, if you've got an enclosed ensuite for a fan, and various things like that, razor points,
shaving sockets,
that sort of thing. And so we actually invested quite a lot of money getting those in, because we thought actually that's good anyway. That's investing in things that customers definitely would like and they'll benefit from.
It's all value added.
So we did actually spend quite a lot of time and put quite a lot of energy into upgrading certain things to make sure it did meet that level. But we're glad we did.
Yeah. I think, the whole process, it was time consuming. A lot of work went into the prep and everything. But like you say, the actual process on the day was very straightforward. And we're glad we went through it all. It was well worth it.
Yeah. Would you have got 4 stars if you hadn't have prepared?
No
chance.
No.
chance.
All the information is there somewhere. There are all these different organisations in France who have little bits of information that you can glean more and more from.
There's also a slight issue in France, of course, where you're perhaps not quite up to date on the latest document because they keep changing things. And whilst Julia had downloaded the latest document, he came on with a later version that wasn't actually available yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's handy.
He asked if we had, I can't remember what it was, and I thought, that's not on the list. And I said, is that on the list? And he said, wait. And he showed me. And I thought, not on the one that's on the internet right now. But I thought, well, I'm not going to get into negotiation. You're the boss. So anyway, it was fine.
Well, that's quite French anyway, isn't it, really? So
it's quite French. Yeah.
So no regrets. You're living in a beautiful area of France. You've got lovely guests. And it sounds like that dream you wanted has lived up to it. That dream you had back in England has actually become reality. What top tips would you have for people who haven't yet taken that massive jump and followed their dream to France?
Go for it.
Have
for
faith.
A start.
Have faith in your decision.
Don't give up at the first hurdle. And also, perhaps, I sort of think if you almost, I don't know, maybe this is me, but I think maybe don't overthink it. Commit to it, because if you commit to it, you will find a way. You have to find a way.
You used the word foolhardy before when you were talking about finding your place. And I think you need to be a bit foolhardy and naive and follow your dream.
Yeah,
I think so.
That helps.
Yeah, you could. I think particularly the older you get as well, you could overthink things, you could overcheck things, and you could persuade. You could lose the momentum, couldn't you? Because it would look overwhelming. So I think sometimes it's better, and not just in doing this, but in all walks of life. If you've got a dream to do something, I think sometimes it is just best to commit in a way that you can't pull out, and then find the way to achieve it, because
you will. Because
you'll be pleased that you did. There's that old saying, isn't it, about you're not regretting the things that you did, it's regretting things you didn't do. I think that's so true. Go for it would be the bottom line. Yeah.
Oh, I'm really pleased. I'm so pleased that your experience is as positive as ours has been as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your help as well.
Well, it was a real pleasure, and it's such a beautiful property. And I think it being buying a place that when you've only seen 5 properties, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to other people, but you did find the right property. You didn't just go for the best of the 5 that you'd seen. You went for the right property, and you were very lucky to find it so quickly. But I think you've been able to build on that. The place itself is magical. The facilities you offer are fantastic. You're brilliant hosts, and the sun is shining. So you've got everything that you need for a really successful gîte business. So I wish you lots of luck, and I hope that everyone has enjoyed listening to our podcast about Les Chauvins. Thank you, Julia and Mac.
Thank you, Rupert.
Thank you
very much.
Welcome to the Gîte Podcast. Brought to you by Gîte Guru.
Well, I think you'll agree that Julia and Mac are two of the loveliest people ever. And I think if I went on holiday and they were the owners and hosts of a gîte that I was staying at, I would be absolutely thrilled. I am so pleased that the dream they had when living in the UK and looking online for properties has turned into a reality, that it's as good as they had hoped it would be, and that it hasn't turned into a nightmare, regardless of the obstacles that have been thrown in their way. Visas and selling houses and borrowing money from twin sisters. I thought it was very interesting to talk about what it's like to buy an existing gîte business. I thought one of the most interesting things that Julia talked about was about having fallen in love with it as it was, and yet, once she owned it, wanting to stamp her own character on the gîte business and making some changes, even though she had fallen in love with what was already there. But on the whole, I think when you do buy an existing gîte business, you're going to be up and running quicker than you would be if you're setting up a completely new gîte product and business, especially if you're going to keep the product the same, which, of course, Julia and Mac didn't do. They swapped around where they were going to live and what they were renting out. But if you keep the product the same and you've got returning guests and you're therefore able to take over Booking.com and Airbnb and all those kind of listings from the current owners or the vendors, then hopefully you're going to have bookings already, which will get your business further quicker. In the case of Julia and Mac, there was also the point that they had to close the calendars because not only were they changing the product, but they weren't sure of the timeline, what with buying and moving and getting visas and getting everything ready. So there is that. They did take on quite a lot of the existing gîte business, including the website, which is super handy, loads of bed linen and all the furniture. So it is a way of keeping costs right down. Okay, you might want to replace things and change a few things, but at least most of the things are already there. So I would say, as a kind of rule of thumb, to buy an existing gîte business, if you're going to continue it in exactly the same way, is a fantastic way of doing it. If you're going to change everything, hopefully there will still be benefits to it, but it won't have all of the benefits that it will do if you were just to keep the product the same. And I love the fact that this is another couple who work together really well as a team, who have their own skills and characteristics that they're able to throw into running a gîte, and that the gîtes do allow them to live in a really beautiful part of France in the countryside with fantastic views, and without the gîtes that might not have all been possible. So that's part of my passion for gîtes, is that it really does allow anyone, regardless of what your French is like or where you're coming from or what experience you've had previously, it does allow you to move to France and live in wonderful areas and hopefully afford to live in wonderful areas. So if you're thinking of following Julia and Mac's example, then I would agree wholeheartedly with what Julia and Mac said at the end of the episode, which is go for it. If you haven't met us before, we're Gîte Guru, Frank and me, Rupert. We run our own gîtes, Le Mas and Le Mazette, and when we left our careers in Amsterdam back in 2015 to run these gîtes full-time, they became our livelihood. We had to make the business work. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but through trial, error, and plenty of learning, we've built a 32-week season and a loyal base of 60% returning guests. We started Gîte Guru to share what we've learned and to help others succeed too. So if you're looking for free tips, insights and inspiration, head to gîteguru.com and subscribe to this Gîte podcast. For ongoing updates, behind-the-scenes posts and relevant Gîte news, including tax changes and industry trends, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. And if you're after more personalized support, we offer tailor-made advice around your business, your gîte, its interiors, facilities, the services you offer, and the all-important communication and marketing. So telling the story of your gîte and making it visible to your target groups. If you're interested, get in touch for a free Zoom chat about your property, your plans, and how we could help you. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. See you there.